All right, so next on case 45. Who is that one? Main case. Master and Patriarch N of Tozan said, even Shakyamuni and Maitreya are servants of that one. Just tell me, who is that one? The one's commentary. If you clearly recognize that one, it will be just like meeting your father at the crossroads. It is not necessary to ask others whether it is he or not. The verse. Don't draw another's bow. Don't ride another's horse. Don't speak of another's faults. Don't inquire into another's affairs. So another part of this koan where does it start? So master exchange between master Goso, actually the same master with a different student who replied. He was asked, he asked him who is that one, and his reply was Kocho-san and Kokurishi, which were two popular names at the time. So these are probably translations because this would have been in China. So they were just like saying, names like John and George in response to who is that one. And as a checking koan, which Zen masters will often do, you'll give an answer. Like for example, the koan Mu. There are a series of checking koans to make sure that you really understood it, because it's easy enough to guess what the answer is. But if you haven't really experienced it, you won't pass the checking koans. So this master checks him and says, he came back to Dokusan the next day, and he asks the question again, even Shakyamuni and Maitreya are servants of that one. Tell me, who is that one? And Kaku, who's the student, said, I told you yesterday. And Goso said, what did you say? Kaku said, Kocho-san and Kokurishi. And Goso said, not right, not right. And Kaku said, why did you say it was right yesterday? And Goso said, because it was right yesterday. Today, it is not right. So the trap, he's pointing out a trap in this. The typical Zen trap is we pass a koan or come up with an answer or have this level of inspiration or insight or this aha moment, and we hang on to it as if it is the answer to everything now. So you go out repeating that same answer moment after moment, but that answer, that inspiration, that moment is gone. You have moved on, and so has the answer. And any good Zen master is going to test that. Are you just repeating? And I think we've had, and there were a couple of the more violent koans we've talked about. The kid who imitated his master with the one finger, and the master cut his finger off, and said, "That does not work for you just to be a broken record of what you think is the right answer." And you hear this often in the cliches. Now the AI has mastered those cliches. Sometimes I'll click on those little Buddhist YouTube for some inspiration at the worst things because they're just one cliche after another, and half the time they're mispronouncing the names of things because AI has no idea what's going on. So this one, is who we are. Our intrinsic nature is this one, but this one is not stuck. It's not fixed in one particular place or as one thing or as one idea or as a single concept. It is in this constant flow of reality. So, within that flow, as you are flowing, who is that one? And this koan basically is just another of the many koans that erodes any idea we have of separation. That there is us and them, there's us and other. This any sort of othering is the source of all suffering. And and I was in my talk last week at Sweetwater. I talked about this insidious and insistent separation. It is, it's divide and conquer all the time, especially right now. That's the pervading strategy. But this goes on all the time. We're bombarded with this otherness, these horrible comparisons that we're expected to buy into and try to become different from what we are. And it's billions and billions of dollars being spent to constantly keep you separate, to constantly think that you're separate or not enough, or you don't have that or this or that, and that you need something else to be whole. But we're all naturally whole already. And that's the message that's very difficult to get across to people and for people to believe when they do hear the message. There's always something else that they want to be, or that they want the wholeness to look like something else, or to contain different things that it contains. And the most, and people fight loud and long to keep things separate. And I think that my theory is, and this is just my personal opinion, that you have to fight that loud and long to fight nature, because nature is naturally whole. And so in order for you to try to maintain this idea that we are separate, you have to be loud and just so vehement about it consistently to make people think that it's true. It's like the louder it is, the more true it is. Because actually the truth is silent. It doesn't have to work that hard. And the loudest form of separation is, the atomic bomb. I mean, the ultimate separation at the atomic level. And that's what separation does. It just blows us apart unnecessarily because we're not separate. And insisting on it doesn't seem to work. People have to discover it for themselves. They have to sit down and shut up and breathe. And get to the point that you stop all the noise, all the chatter, all the destructive separation. Because there is no other. You can't draw another's bow. You can't ride somebody else's horse. You can't speak about another's faults because you don't recognize someone else's faults if you don't have those same faults within you to be able to recognize it. That's the tricky thing about projection. And so we're looking out there, thinking the problem is out there, when indeed it's all within us, all of it. And don't inquire into another's affairs, because there's no affairs that are not all of ours. This connection is, for all the good, bad, ugly, and beautiful that it is complete in and of itself. There's no getting out of it. There is no other way. It's laughable that that people work so hard to keep us separate. If they just stopped, then again, my opinion, I think our wholeness would just naturally rise. If people would just knock off the noise about us being separate or different or trying to be something other. Who's the congresswoman who called ICE on the Hyundai plant? She has doubled down.
Who said what?
So there was I guess she's running for Congress. Maybe she's not in Congress yet. I think she's planning on running for Congress. So her noble deed for the day, this is in one of the southern states, was she heard about all of these what she thought were illegal immigrants at a Hyundai plant, and so she called ICE and they all got detained. They were there, they were legally there, and they were actually preparing the space for several thousand jobs to replace all these workers. They were just there to train people on how to make. I'm assuming it was a car plant. I don't know the details.
Oh, yes, a battery.
A battery plant.
It's a pump in Georgia.
In Georgia. So these, somewhere around 5,000 jobs are supposed to come out of this project, and she calls ICE on these people. The people get upset. They go back to Korea, and they're not coming back. So, and leave it to Newsom to capitalize on that because now he's bringing them here. I just had to laugh. And you would think this woman would say, okay, my bad. I didn't know. I
He was wrong.
no. So, but of course, she's doubled down. She did nothing wrong, and she was hearing different things directly from Korea itself. I mean, I'm keep trying to avoid her rhetoric, and it keeps popping up in my feed. So I'm like, but she's the prime example right now of people who just insist on this separation, who will not take any accountability for the suffering that they cause. And I think that's where the rubber hits the road. Is not only are we not separate, but we are accountable for each other. We are servants for each other, which is what this whole koan is about. Even Shakyamuni and Maitreya are servants of that one. Just tell me, who is that one? And that one is all of us, it's each of us. That's inevitably, but the more important part about this koan is not separating from Shakyamuni, not separating from Maitreya, and not separating from being of service. That's the part where we get stuck. Is what does that mean? What does that look like? And how is it that this Lord Shakyamuni, who we hold up on this pedestal, and this mythical Maitreya, who is the Buddha yet to come, how are they servants to me? That's the ultimate work, is this level of accountability, this level of compassion, this level of service that we are to the best of humanity, the world, the universe. That's what comes with the oneness. That's the hard work that comes with the oneness, and that's the part that nobody wants. and I don't even know the woman's name. Congress candidate who just will never be able to admit that her job was to be of service to her community, and by trying to separate us from the South Koreans, or us from illegal immigrants, or us from whomever it is you're making the other, costs you and creates suffering. So, and there are endless examples of this. She just happens to be the loudest one by YouTube, and she's very entertaining at this point, because she's just all over the place with her stuff, and but she's just an example of what we do. It's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. I shouldn't try to solve this, and we get caught in, well, should have, don't we should ourselves to death. If this had been in place, this would not be a problem, and it's that doesn't work either. It's like the problem's here, right now. And as I was thinking today, the first thing that I couldn't quite fathom was why my cushion was so dirty. And I'm like, what am I doing that's causing all this dirt on my cushion? And then it was pointed out to me that it's because the floor is dirty. And and then I'm thinking, and then of course the conversation is, well, who's responsible for cleaning the floor? And I had to smile because I had this koan on my mind. I was like, there it is. There's pushing off the responsibility. Okay, so next week yes, we have a contract that says they're supposed to provide us a clean floor, but I'm bringing my Swiffer mop anyway, because this is where the responsibility is. Right here, right now, with me in this oneness. There's no one else here. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? Um, that's the service that is in play every moment of every day. Um, and that we miss, and we miss it. Yes, we still need to take care of parts of the contract that are not being fulfilled. We expect to come in here, we pay however much money a month, and expect to get the very least, clean the floor. However, if that doesn't happen, I'm still getting sand all over my cushion. That didn't solve the problem today. So um, that's the hard part. Admittedly, taking on that level of responsibility, and we can't do it by ourselves. It's, we are in this oneness. There are this myriad manifestations of this oneness as all of us, and as this group, as this collective, as this sangha, and it takes a village to take care of everything. Yeah, we were going through this thing with Yokoji, and Jokai is very skillfully kind of parsing out the different areas of responsibility so that it gets things get done. Simply because there just aren't enough people living at the Zen Center to take care of it right now, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen again anytime soon. I did see an email that said residency request. I didn't know, so now my email, don't open it. I had to resist. Jokai will see it. Let's pray. They're an accountant. They know how to do QuickBooks because I don't. I'm learning the hard way. But
there are limits to how much we individually can do to take care of the things that we need to have taken care of.
yeah,
For example, you can Swiffer floor, but can you perform brain surgery?
No.
No, in a pinch, no, you have to rely on the people that are supposed to be doing that. Or
clearly we have to know our own limitations, and we're all given some level of talent and abilities. I don't have the ability to wield a scalpel safely.
you could do brain surgery.
I could, yeah.
Just not very well.
Yeah, not very well. I doubt anyone would survive me doing brain surgery. I happen to have a Swiffer and the whole package of those wet things that attach to the Swiffer. One more thing just packed in my car won't hurt me. Until
maybe I'll call the office and have them.
Thank you. That's
wash the floor. Absolutely.
True, and we need to have the village do what they're supposed to be doing, and who knows why, and maybe even look at, could we do a holistic assessment of why that's not happening overall? Because it's supposed to be part of what. Because they must be affected too. Because this was, we're using this place for a couple hours a week.
Well, but they don't walk around barefoot in here. We do.
I guess that's true.
Their shoes are. And they don't put cushions on the floor.
But I would think you would hear that on the bottom of your shoes. All the dirt that's. It's like, okay. Anyway, I digress. We're caught up in that little dirty moment. But it was interesting that the Sweetwater Song is going through an anti-racism program right now, and I'll have to get the name of the book. I bought the book, but I can't remember the woman who wrote it.
How to be an anti-racist? The Abraham?
No, it's a different book. She uses the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold. She calls it Engaged Four Noble Truths and Engaged Eightfold Path as a pathway to anti-racism. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I had this conversation with him a week ago Friday, and I went down on Sunday, so I had 24 hours I downloaded the Audible, version of the book, and so I think and her chapters are long, so I had time to listen to one chapter. and it was she's good. She's a Vietnamese. She first year. No, she was born in Vietnam, but her parents immigrated when she was like 1 or 2 years old, so she doesn't remember Vietnam. So she is an immigrant, and she talks about the invisibility of being Asian. And this was written during COVID, so there was a lot of anti-Asian sentiment at the time because it was Trump's.
Orange people still.
What?
Orange people still.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. So she wrote it in the heat of that, and literally Asian people were being killed. And right here in LA, there was some I think it was an African American man who walked up to an elderly Asian man and pushed him in the street, and he died from his head injuries as a result of that. I was like, he's walking down the street and decides that this person is responsible for COVID and therefore they must die. So these levels of and I remember the point where the hair's breadth of othering is all it takes for us to become enemies and kill each other. It's just amazing. And what's even more amazing to me is that we don't see it as a whole culture, that we thrive in this culture on these levels of separation, and it keeps getting perpetuated. Tons and tons of money is getting poured into this, and they want to keep us that way.
Well, it goes hand in hand with capitalism.
That's true. Yeah, if you're satisfied and have enough, you're already very bad.
The economy is driven.
Yeah, the economy will stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in order to be a good capitalist, you have to not be satisfied.
And you have to want to be better.
Yeah, and want more.
Yeah. Well, more is better.
Yeah, more is better. Yeah, that's true.
Your neighbor.
Yeah, I guess I'd be, they'd label me as some kind of communist, but even communism has to have something that generates money.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't be a communist, you would be
What would I be?
maybe a deadbeat or
A deadbeat.
Anti-American.
Anti-American. What was the word back in the 60s? Anti-disestablishmentarianist. You ever heard that word?
Yeah.
Longest word in English language.
Huh?
Longest word in English.
Is it even longer than supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? That's actually in the dictionary.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Yeah, is the longest one. Still, it's like, yeah, I remember. At one time, I used to know how to spell it. I think I'd have to think about it. Anyway.
But the other thing, it inflames the passions, which means money flows.
Yeah.
People get elected. If you can't get someone's juices flowing, they're going to, go out and work for you and raise money for you and help you tell your lives at a bigger stage.
Yeah.
It kind of all feed each other.
True. And you still need to have places to live, and you need to have meaningful work. I think this oneness does not cause paralysis. There's still stuff to do. There's still work that needs to be done. What that work looks like, and how it manifests in communities, I think will vary depending on what the community needs. But it would be the work of taking care of the community. In my mind, I realize I come from this level of privilege. I live in the richest city, in the richest state, in the richest country in the world. And all the stuff that's around me, I take for granted. The fact that I get in my relatively new EV and hop on a freeway that has smooth pavement, and I drive all this over. I calculated I drive on with all the stuff that's going on. It's an average of 700 miles every weekend that I'm doing, and I have the ability to do that without a second thought. So, I'm not living in a world, in a community where there are desperate needs, but those needs are there, out there. And if I don't need that care, how do I take care of those communities that do need that care? So I think there is always work to do. That was my father's favorite saying. One of the 7 black Republicans on the planet, but he was very fiscally conservative. I don't think he would have, or did it. I don't think he voted for Trump, but definitely conservative.
What was his name? What was his name?
There's always work to do.
Oh, that was work to do.
Yeah. So because he was very anti.
Slothfulness.
No, what's the money that people get when they're not working?
Welfare.
Welfare. He was very anti-welfare. So yeah, and I sat in the middle of that argument because my mother was left of Bernie Sanders. So the dinner table was,
House divided.
yeah. Well, they were married for over 60 years, 63 years before my father died. So you'd hear this it's people taking advantage of welfare. There's always work to do. What's wrong with these people? My mother was like, oh, honey, sometimes people need a little help. So
Both things are true.
now, yeah, they're both true. And so I'm now this very centrist political person. So those are the two major influences in my life growing up was take care of people, and there's always work to do. Because my mother was a nurse, a career nurse, so her job was of service to people who were ill. Which is how I got, just because she was vice president of the hospital that I probably landed a very cush HR job when I was 16. The rest of my classmates had to work in the cafeteria. I was a file clerk. I know. So I think there's always work to do. I don't think that suddenly the entire world will stop functioning if we recognize and realize and live out of our oneness, because the oneness, there will always be something that needs to be done and taken care of. And it would be a huge shift in how communities operate, how we live, and how we take care of each other. And I don't have any idea. I'm not a social, architect. I don't know I've never thought along those lines of what that would look like. But it is painful to me that we work so hard to separate ourselves from everything around us, when it's just simply not true. It's delusion. It's absolutely delusional that we're separated. That people think that they're better than other people, and those people don't belong, or we'll just take health care away because they should die. This mentality is just it's insidiously horrible. And here we are with the results of that, with the suffering that comes from that, and that's the job now, is to take care of that, to be of service. Because when you go back to this koan, there's so many 2 lines and so multi-layered. Even Shakyamuni and Maitreya, we're not separate from Shakyamuni and Maitreya. So we are of service. We are servants to that one, to the oneness. And that's what I tell, that's why I often describe people who want Jukai and Tokudo and transmission that Buddhist hierarchy going. The higher you go, the more, it's a demotion at every level, because you're taking vows of deeper and deeper service at all of those levels. And I think that's what it should be. The higher your office is, the president of the most powerful country in the world should have the accountability and the maybe I should start with the ability the recognition and the ability to be of service to the world, because we have the resources to do that. Not how it works. My delusion or my dream.
I mean, there hasn't been a national leader that I kept seeing except Gandhi was advocated this.
No, no. And I don't think he ever held official office, did he?
No.
Yeah. So,
There's that president of Uruguay, Jose Rio, or I forget. But, yeah, he talked his talk. He still lived in his house. He drove kind of like a beat up old car. And Uruguay's a really nice country, kind of like Costa Rica. In ways.
Mm-hmm.
so yeah,
There's a
the
man.
yeah, what's the saying? Something should be like the more you have, the more responsibility. Yeah, the more power you have, the more responsibility you have to the world. I believe that that's how I, would want to live my life, which is probably why I have no power. So, I do have, this teaching, this practice, which is still a lot of work to stay in touch with the oneness, because that bombardment is constant. It's constant. Yeah. So,
Jose Mujica.
Eureka.
Yeah, he passed away in 2022.
Oh,
President, well, he's pretty old. He was, the early, from 2010, 2015, he was president of Uruguay.
oh, so he was in office for a long time. It's a democratic country. I don't know anything about Uruguay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, stable, democratic, and I think it's the wealthiest in South America by per capita, or pretty close.
Most secular, least religious.
Yeah.
Funny how those things go together.
Don't get me started. Anyway, so yeah, here we are. And it's really it's an anti-fight. It's when you stop struggling and stop engaging with this very powerful separating machine, and you just sit down and breathe and quiet your mind. That natural state always 100% arises. No effort. So it's really just letting go of all the efforts. And you do have to, take some effort to kind of shut the world out. But then you have to go out and engage with the world from this space of oneness, from the source of oneness. I like the Eiken Roshi pointed out that in Chinese iconography, there's no difference between Maitreya and Hotai, who's the laughing Buddha, and the laughing Buddha is the one that is kind of the Chinese Santa Claus. He has a great big bag on his back, and he's always laughing. And he looks kind of sloppy, doesn't care what his clothes look like, and he's just always having a good time, handing out toys to the kids, and the same depiction in the Tenoxering pictures when the guy who's been chasing his enlightenment for the 10 frames goes back to the marketplace to engage with everyone just as they are. He's happy and complete and whole, but he does go back. He goes back to the marketplace. He doesn't remain the hermit. The hermit part of practice seems to be, and Carl Jung also talks about that. When people reach certain stages of enlightenment, they have to get away from engaging with the world for a while. But then that level matures to the point of being able to go back into the world. So it is not about separating yourself from this incessant separating machine. It's about realizing your natural state, your natural way of being, and practicing uh, practicing in that state. It's not practicing being that state because you are. That's practicing what you are naturally, and then taking that back and bringing that to the marketplace. And that's your gift. That's the job. That's the hard work, and being accountable for what you can be accountable for, and just taking care of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was practice for me. Enables me to be more and more, really present with things as they occur, and not sort of how I think I was in the past, where I need to think about my reaction of what I could actually give an appropriate reaction. So now I can be more in the moment. So when Charlie Kirk was killed, my immediate reaction is how horrible. And I stayed with it. It was a horrible thing. And a lot of people that say, "Oh, he's not a martyr," but in a sense, he is a martyr. He's a martyr like many other. And the person that served 30 years in prison and died in jail, the crime he didn't commit, where the hungry man starving to death on the street, people walk by. There's just, I guess, it expands your definition and allows you to be present with all kinds of suffering without judgment, giving the rationalizations. Well, he was killed by his own hatred. It's like that wasn't my immediate reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. It allows you to be present and react in the moment in a way that is consistent with your true nature.
Yeah. Yeah, and he, is a teacher in that respect. Sometimes what teachers teach is what not to do or how not to be, and that's a valuable lesson. And I think that even some of the greatest Maizumi Roshi, did things that were valuable lessons of what not to do. So yeah, I think that's how I I heard about his rhetoric. I never listened to any of his speeches or heard what he actually said. So I know, other than him being killed, being sensational, I had no basis on which to judge him. So I didn't know who he was. But he was part of our oneness, and so were all the other good, bad, horrible, beautiful people, and animals and nature. Nature does some really horrific things, unprompted, but we're not separate from any of it at any time, anywhere. Questions, comments? How's your oneness?
That's why it's practice. Yeah. It's not always easy or obvious, but
Yeah.
it's sort of reminder, it's helpful in taking that out into this chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And similar feelings with that reaction of what happened. Pretty grotesque and the violence of it, but then within my social circle, this mixed bag of, putting a positive spin on it or got what you deserved and all this, and it's, hearing it and engaging with it, but also just recognizing that was the idea.
Yeah. 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 And because unfortunately, the violence just begets violence. There will always be that mindset. I read that quote from Martin Luther King last week. You can kill the hater, but you're not going to get rid of the hate, because that's here. That's our job to take care of. And transform. I love the Sweetwater does. They've kind of changed the Bodhisattva chant that we do the vows we do. We say sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. They say beings are numberless I vow to serve. Which I thought, okay, that kind of works. Not that we're adopting their their chant, but
We used to say serve. You remember it got changed? Way back, remember this whole thing got changed, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. By tension, we went back and redid it.
no, he changed the second one.
That's the one, sentient being.
No, the first one is sentient beings are numberless. I
Oh,
would say that. He changed desires to delusions. Chant used to be desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. He changed desires to illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. So he only changed the one word, but the rest of it is the same as it was, at least when from ZCLA. So the Peacemaker Order, which was Tetsugen Roshi, he made a lot of those changes. So because Seisen Saunders, who was Tenshin's ex-wife, Tenshin had transmission from Maizuru Roshi. Seisen had transmission from Tetsugen. And so she adopted the Peacemaker Order changes. And Tetsugen went through and changed a lot of them. And they make a lot of sense, because if I can remember their chants, beings are numberless, I vow to serve. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform. Dharma gates are everywhere, I vow to enter. It seemed like the Buddha way. The Buddha way is inexhaustible, I vow to practice. So slight differences, same meaning, but I appreciate that those are subtle differences. All right. Any final words before we go out and be one in our world? Anything from Kirk, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one word. Pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
Say what?
You had supercalifragilistic.
Oh.
So I just wanted to one up you just once.
Okay. You win. Thanks.